We are starting today's meeting, August 16th, and motion to approve the regular minutes from July 19th. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 19, 2023.
Second.
Seconded. Any other comments? All in favor? Okay, that is passed. And we've got an executive session one MSRA 4056E to discuss a legal matter. Do I have a motion?
Actually, if I may, there was no update this month.
Okay.
It's just status quo.
Okay.
So if you want to.
Maybe we should still go in and...
Absolutely.
And,
We have a quick discussion and updates and all that stuff. And
You wouldn't wait long?
no, it won't be long.
so I make a motion that we go into executive session in accordance with 1 MSRA
Gotta wait to make sure the motion's...
405 D to discuss a legal matter.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Katie.
We're now out of executive session. And financial report, Katie.
All right, I apologize, I was just putting it in my mouth. Revenues are down again, but I'm hopeful because they're not down as much. Last month they were down 21,000. This month, for budget, this month it was only 5,000. So I'm feeling better about that. Of course, the rain is, I think, impacting this quite a bit. And then our cash line increased by 150. And currently working on a purchasing policy and fiscal policy. So that will be coming soon. I'm pretty much done with it. So.
No concerns then? How are you doing? Are you feeling you're up to speed and comfortable with the way
I would
things are
ask my
going?
boss that.
She's definitely doing a good job. Whereas, you know, when you can come in and get an understanding of how we work and then, you know, start helping us by, you know, we do need a purchasing policy.
Yes.
We do need some other.
We've been talking about that for a year.
We have, so she did a great job. I've already read the draft. It looks good. We just got to go through the process of, it'll probably be on the next agenda for you all to review, and then we're going to adopt it.
Great.
So it's looking
Anybody
good.
have any questions? All right, great. We're going to move on to ratify the payment of bills.
I'd like to move that we ratify the payment of bills.
Second.
Okay. Do you have
All set.
you got all your questions answered? Good. Anybody else have anything? All in favor? All right, and then we've got public comment. Folks?
I'd like to ask if we could defer public comment until after the comments or the presentation of the CDM Smith report. I think that's the most significant thing on the agenda that would warrant public comment, which might be better done after Mike has made a presentation on it.
Do you have any comment?
I agree that I think that's when the public comment should be. I mean, I don't have a comment on the bills you're paying.
Okay, well, that's not, the point of public comment is for people to come in and have their say. So that's what we're gonna close public comment, and we're gonna move on to
Well,
activity
excuse me,
report.
Mr. Mills, are you closing public comment?
Yes.
In
Period?
contemplation of moving it to after this presentation
Yeah.
of the Smith? In which case I will make some public comment.
Okay.
I have reviewed the CDM Smith report, and there are a couple of problems with it. The first one is that it's unintentionally, I think, but misleading on the third page, wherein it discusses at the top of the page certain things that LAWPC requested CDM Smith to do on this proposal of March 27, 2023. And it identifies two items, and the other one was basically the issue about establishing the watershed boundary. Then it continues with a paragraph that says that DWP provided the potential boundary in a March 2023 letter. Well, that ought to be the first paragraph. The potential boundary proposed in the March 2023 letter was the reason that LAWPC issued its requests that are discussed in the preceding paragraph. So it's cart before the horse. If you read the third paragraph first, and you can understand what the first paragraph is about. The other error in this report is a purely factual one. It's not huge, but it's just plain inaccurate, at least as I see things on the face of the earth, and it's back in the section that discusses the area abutting the Berry Farm, which is on page 8 of the report. And this is the area which you may recall has not been excavated, but the drinking water group was concerned about whether or not the water flow in that area went toward the lake or away from the lake. And there was some question about whether additional borings were going to be required in that area. And this report states that there is a topographic high near the southwest end of the Grace Lawn Pit property. And it says local surface drainage in this area diverts flow to the south to a culvert beneath Mount Auburn Avenue and away from Lake Auburn. Well, as of 3 days ago when I was there, there is a culvert under the road, but it drains not away from Lake Auburn, but from the higher side, which is the cemetery side, to Lake Auburn. There's a small retention pond in the area closer to the lake. The culvert was not very accurately placed because it's off about 3 feet offset to the side of the retention pond, but there is a storm drain on the cemetery side, and then there's an open end of a 12-inch wire-bound culvert pointing toward the lake on the lake side. So I believe this is just factually inaccurate.
Certainly a lot has gone on over there since this whole process was first started.
It may have been that that was
They did
might have-
outline that this area that abuts the Berry Farm cannot be determined at this time because there is no hydrogeological data. We need to drill test wells, and that's outlined in the back.
Yes.
So at that time, if this were to be considered as part of the watershed, there's a task list of what to do for that. And I feel like it would vet out all of those issues.
Yeah, I'm just simply pointing out
Yeah.
that what was assumed, I think, in preparation of this report was that there would be a culvert place that would go in the opposite direction. The actual lay of the land has directed that the culvert go in the northerly direction. It doesn't even hit the retention pond.
And just, in the first thing you had brought up, in the order of the requests, the Watershed Commission, and I feel like I could speak to this just because I am their secretary and I follow those ongoings, their intention was to address the area of uncertainty. And it just so happened that the drinking water program did raise that same question, so they added that to it. So that's why it was done in that order. But the original intention was to address the area of uncertainty. Why do we want to be uncertain about something? Let's figure this out. Does it go towards the lake or not? So that was the point of that, and why it wasn't when this study was commissioned, it wasn't ever to adopt this drinking water program boundary. It was more to determine what's going on in this area of uncertainty and this area where the drinking water program also drew a circle and had questions. So I feel like this report accomplished that, and they basically came to the same conclusion as the drinking water program and said, you can draw your boundary here and you're safe from there to the south, but from here
Yes.
north, you need
Yes.
to do further investigation.
Yeah.
So.
The drinking water program, as I recall it, actually initiated that dashed line
Yeah,
on its
they
own
drew
initiative.
They drew it.
They
Yep.
drew it.
Did you have anything to say?
No, I'm just here as a member of the public who are very concerned. If you just were a member of the public without even looking into this very detailed report, I think if some friends from out of town, for example, oh, you're going to put 1,100 units downhill from a lake, your drinking water source, your unfiltrated drinking water source, what could go wrong? So that's kind of that's what I've heard, that's what I'm very concerned about.
Okay. Good, so we'll then close public comment. Thank you. And activity report, Mike.
All right, Matt is not
And
here.
Carter.
Yes, Matt is not here this month. He had a pre-scheduled vacation. I'm going to run down through this, although he did prepare both the activity report and the project update. Activities have been relatively low because we've been very busy on projects. You can see all the replacing of the mains. We've finished up several of our projects, Taylor, Ash, Parker, Rowe, French's Lane. We've finished the main replacement on all of those streets. The only thing we're waiting for is the contractor to get to the point where we just need to raise our structures, being sewer manholes and water gate valves and stuff to the surface. But that work is done. Today they did wrap up the work on 2nd Street, so that street is now ready. All the temporaries are in.
Second and done?
2nd Street.
Second.
We are ready for Gendron to come in and replace the water main there. And they are working on Dunn next. So that's where we're at with the projects. The one thing that's been problematic over the last month is all this rain. It's been pretty disrupting to operations. It's not like we're just getting small showers here. We've had 3 rain events that have been in excess of 4 inches of rain. A couple of them have been in excess of 5 inches of rain. It's been pretty damaging to our watershed and some of the roads in the watershed. There's quite a bit of erosion occurring. We had some out on Spring Road. Lakeshore Drive is taking quite a bit of damage. I did write a letter today to the city. Phil Kroll has been meeting with the FEMA folks up in Augusta, and they had requested a letter from me outlining the damage to Spring Road so they can help use that. There's been a lot of damage caused around town. I don't know if you saw some of the stuff in the news. There was Miller Street, there was Jordan School Road, there was a bunch of roads.
Jackson Hill Road.
We had a number of things here at the district. We had a couple of cross-country sewer mains that got washed out. We had a lot of damage to the infrastructure, so we've kept track of our costs, and we've been trying to submit this so it would qualify for FEMA funds to help. So now we're looking at potentially getting funding to reconstruct that section of Lakeshore Drive that all that erosion has occurred on. So that's why I wrote that letter today, and I got that off to them. So it's a pretty rough shape.
Lightning damage due to equipment.
We lost several radios. There was some intense lightning. It was just, we had trees down, taking out electrical services, the pump stations. We had a lot going on, those big storms. So definitely staff, hats off to them. They kicked butt, and we kept everything running like we do. That's what we do. So.
Like I was biking Spring Road, I think it was this morning, or was it yesterday morning. Do you want to bring some cones down there? Because it's a pretty gaping hole, and people still recreating through there.
Okay, I know Lewison was down there yesterday fixing that.
Oh, they were, okay, so it would have been
They fixed it
yesterday
yesterday,
morning. Oh, good.
Yep.
Okay, good, thanks.
One question I had on station checks in your activity report.
Yep.
I see Stable Ridge. How are we doing on that agreement and everything that's going on?
So, yes, so we are still waiting for them to produce things that they had said they would do within, 30 days of the execution of taking over that. We're still waiting on things that they have not produced for us. We have not officially taken over the full ownership of that yet, although we're maintaining it, and but the official ownership transfer has not occurred yet because we're waiting on those items. Phase 2 construction is occurring up there. If you drive by, you see the contractors excavating and doing work, preparing for the new buildings. One of the things we had talked about doing was applying for a rate increase just to affect the residents that are served by that booster station based off of the incurred costs that we incur to serve them. It's hard to do that now when Phase 2 hasn't been constructed yet. When Phase 2 goes in, we're going to be pumping more water, that's more electricity, that raises the cost.
Right.
So we're waiting for Phase 2 to be complete. Then we're going to need to take in a few months worth of that data. Then when we have that data, we can apply for the rate increase, and we'll have the information to justify it.
So we can't put any pressure on them to tell them cease and desist Phase 2 until you've taken care of your obligation, because it sounds to me like they don't want to do what they're supposed to do.
Well, they've actually tried. They're waiting on the software.
can't do
One of the big things that we're waiting on is it's software backups. So everything's run by computers. The software that runs that station, we don't have it, and we don't have the right to work on it. If lightning struck that station, that software went down, they're not going to get any water, because I can't just go in and put any program in that to run it.
Right.
So we're required, if we're gonna own it, you need to give us software backups. So if anything happens to that and I have to replace that controller, we can then download the software into there and we can start it up without having to call the guy from Pennsylvania to fly up overnight to install this. And we need to be able to do this.
Would the
Because
software
we're-
backup be on site in that building, and could that be damaged too at
No,
the same time?
no, it would be here.
That's what I thought you were gonna say.
All our backups and spares are here,
Okay.
so for all of our
That's
stations.
what I was hoping you were gonna say.
So they actually already paid for it, we just haven't gotten it from the manufacturer yet. And this is to the point of why we need it, because if that goes down, is it gonna be this long to get it? What we would have to do is we'd have to gut everything in there, we'd have to rewire it, put a whole new panel in there, because that, when we go.
So right now, what would happen if the lightning struck that and there was a problem, it would be up to them to fix
They
it.
have no water.
But we haven't signed anything that says we gotta do
We have
it.
not taken over the official ownership of it yet, and
So
if
they
this
would
is
have to
something
fix
they've been derelict in, they would have to
They
furnish
would have to
that.
fix it.
Yeah.
Well, that should be known to them too. Listen, two things. One, something happens, it's all on you. And number two, this is an agreement that we're letting you go to phase two. City council let them do it, council let them do it, planning board let them do it, but they're delinquent in
Yeah.
their responsibilities. I think we should be able to put some pressure on them.
Yeah, I agree.
Give them a
But
deadline.
if something happens that did go down, guess who would catch all the blame?
It's been a couple of months since I've done a reminder letter to them, I will get another one out.
Sounds like they need
Can we put a
to,
deadline on it?
Sounds like
By
they-
such and
they're
such
not
a date,
moving at all.
or we're not taking ownership of it.
Well, we're collecting rent
Something.
from them, right? We're collecting
Well,
money.
they're customers, yeah.
So, they're gonna probably look to us to
Doesn't
fix
stop,
it.
it doesn't stop,
We're gonna keep the whole thing.
Okay.
but it can continue in the interim.
So that's what I had on project update and activity report.
Okay, you wanna go to water quality update?
Yep, water quality update, well, if you're reading your notes here, you'll see we were doing pretty good. Well, that was because at the time that I wrote this, we hadn't received 2 or 3 large storms. We're still hanging okay. There's a lot of water moving through the lake. The dam is currently opened up a couple hundred turns. In addition to the 200 turns the dam is open, there's water going over the top of the dam. There's a lot of nutrients that came into the lake those last, 2 or 3 storms that we had. We had 2 last week. We had 1 the week before, very large storms. There was quite a bit more erosion that occurred, but we're still hanging okay. There was in a 24-hour period, the transparency in the lake decreased by 2 meters. So that's 6 feet of transparency that we lost, within 24 hours of that storm. So it certainly, clouded up the water. We're still well below the standards. We're still doing okay. And, while we have a lot of nutrients washing into the lake, there's a lot of water being pulled out of the lake. So fingers crossed, we're at that critical point right now. This is the time of year when if the water temperature is really high and we have a lot of nutrients, this is when you have your blooms. I don't see extreme hot weather in the forecast. I don't see this changing. I see the daylight hours getting shorter. I see cooler temperatures coming in at night. I think I'm going to knock on wood. I'm going to say we're over the hump. But it's a very critical time, and these storms got to stop. I don't know if anyone could do that.
but not tomorrow.
Question, Mike,
I mean, Friday. Friday's gonna thunderstorms.
do you think the professionals that have been working with the lake over at Bates could drop a buoy and measure the quality of the water where we might put the intake someday at the depth and location?
So we did have a meeting. We had a meeting with CDM. CDM was given a copy of the RFP that we drafted last year for an extended intake, and they were like, "Hey, what's going on with this?" So Lewiston is funded for this extending the intake project now, so we're blowing the dust off that RFP. And one of the things they talked about, basically where the deep hole is in the lake, that's where Margaret is. And they recommended that...
Margaret's the buoy.
Margaret's the buoy. It's the data buoy. It's got a solar panel on it. It collects data, transmits it, so we can see. Margaret really watches temperature and dissolved oxygen. That's its primary functions. It was recommended that you put a couple other sensors on that buoy to monitor other things that will help with this intake project, to help understand if it would
It'd be great to see the comparison right now.
You're spot on. So that was actually a recommendation of CDM, who's, again, not technically working for us on this project yet. They want to do this work. But I think you'll find this time next month, we're going to be looking to put that RFP out to do this. I will have that on your next agenda.
Cool.
So,
Okay,
so that's water quality update.
great, thank you. Capacity development grant?
Okay, so at the last meeting, we talked about the groundwater study and using a capacity development grant to pay for that. This is a system-wide groundwater investigation. We currently, I was not aware of this, but we are actually currently awarded a capacity development grant. This is funding the alum tributaries study that's being done through the commission. I didn't realize, but they applied for and received one of these grants for this. So that means we're ineligible for another one until 2024, which at this point is only a few months away. We would be able to apply for that. I did speak with the drinking water program staff, and they said that this would qualify in a heartbeat and that they're fully funded, and that as soon as we're eligible, they said go ahead and apply, and they basically said you would get it. So I just wanted to update you on that I can't apply for it this year. I have to wait until the first of the year.
Great, thank you.
Yep, so that's that.
The lead assistance grant?
The assistance grant, this was through the drinking water program, the SRF. This was to help us with our lead and copper rule revisions and improvements that was brought down through EPA. We were awarded a loan with a 55% principal forgiveness to purchase a Vector truck. This Vector truck is going to be used to hydro-excavate services to determine whether they're of lead material or galvanized or not. We are going to have about 2,000 to 3,000 services that we're going to have to inventory. So this truck is going to come in handy. We're actually out to bid right now. The bid opening is September 1st. I've been speaking with the manufacturers, and there's some very interested bidders. So I'm hoping we get good prices, and by September 1 we'll have the bids. So drinking water program is anxious to get us the money for this. So we're working on that.
55% rebate.
55% rebate and 0% interest.
Yeah.
So
that's half off on the truck.
yes.
Yes, that's great.
That's a good deal. Okay, thank you. All right, we've had we're on the CDM Smith watershed boundary.
Yep.
You want to elaborate and we
Yeah.
can discuss that?
So I did, in your packets here is a copy of the CDM Smith report. So we did the Watershed Commission commissioned this study. This is the final draft of it. We've received a presentation on this. What we understand from this is if you go to figure, sorry, I should have been more prepared to have it open to it. The figure on page 2, you will see there's a light blue dotted line. Basically, this study finds that conclusively to the south of that line, that area is out of the watershed. The groundwater does not flow towards the lake. The surface water does not flow towards the lake. That area in its present state has no impact on Lake Auburn, and therefore it can be out of the watershed. The area to the north of that light blue dotted line and to any other areas outside of or inside of the current watershed, being that green circled area by the berry farm, there is not enough information to conclusively prove that they do not flow towards the lake. So it basically needs to stay in the watershed. So with this report, we did commission a letter from the Water District and from the City of Lewiston Water Division to request the drinking water program to review this report and to accept that blue dotted line as a revised watershed boundary line that we can then adopt as a new watershed. And we recognize that there are steps that if there is a future request to go north, potentially into that area of uncertainty, or into that area that's labeled main pit, you know what work will have to be done to determine the water flow. Also, the same goes for the berry farm area.
And that would not be anything that we would be funding, or the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission would fund?
It's not anything we're committed to funding right now. You know, the commission has they haven't said it or voted on it, but they've kind of said they feel like they've done their due diligence for this, and that if there's a contractor or an owner who wants to know this further, if they want to do this work, as long as it's done in accordance with the study, absolutely, do that work, and then we'll consider it.
Good, thank
So-
you, that's what I was hoping to hear.
That's basically where this is at. So we're waiting for a response back from the drinking water program on acceptance of that. I really feel like this is a good step forward. I feel very confident. I saw the 3D modeling. I saw the way they did it. It's not on the watershed. So, you can't. So, it's good.
It is. Yeah, and anything that's done outside the watershed in that area is gonna be connected to our storm runoff system.
So anything that's done in that will have to have a stormwater management plan. It's gonna have to be approved by DEP. It's gonna have testing requirements. It's gonna have, all the standards that they're gonna have to operate and maintain that in accordance with, and I'm sure it'll be watched like a hawk
Sure.
because of the area.
So in
that-
essence, that's outside the watershed.
Correct.
That's gonna be in much better shape than the open
Certainly.
gravel pit that's inside the watershed.
Very well could be.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have any other questions on regard to that? I mean, we've had Eric and other folks that said the worst use of that land is an open gravel pit.
Well, and it also
Well,
begs
his
the
original
question.
presentation showed where it was gonna be a net gain in
No
protection.
matter what, yeah.
It begs the
Improvement of
question
that
about
land.
what that area, what happens to it now. Because if they're afraid that
It's
the main
legal
pit
use.
area and the area of uncertainty shouldn't be touched or be built on or whatever, and yet we've had an active gravel pit there all this time. And we also have.
The blast
Auburn-
there tomorrow.
We have an Auburn landfill further up. that's had
Yeah,
a-
landfill. It's been there for 70
Changes
years.
on a daily basis
This
as
is
it
what
is
we
right
should
now.
be worried about, not so much what's gonna happen, in a place that's protected.
I totally agree.
I don't know what we can do because it's private property, but for years, that could have been a major contributor to problems for the lake.
It certainly, as this shakes out, something we're gonna have to watch. I mean, the district has pretty broad powers through its charter. If there's something jeopardizing the lake,
That's why I
if
wish
it's
we
on
could-
private property, we could.
Yeah, I should we could move forward with all this litigation and stuff, because that's an issue.
It's-
The upper watershed is a serious issue that we aren't gonna touch until we get through all this crap.
That's
But
right.
there's all kinds of problems that are affecting our lake. Spring Road is an example, all that kind of runoff, has nothing to do with what we've been arguing about for
Right.
2 years.
It's stuff that we were
And
addressing
we'd
prior
like
to the
address,
lawsuit.
But we're not getting,
Yeah, it's all stuff that we were looking at and addressing prior to that litigation that put everything on hold. The low-impact design, septic design, all this, improving this land from an open gravel pit into something that contains the water runoff, but it all halted. So, all right, we're gonna go on to the next. If anybody else has anything before we move on? Okay. Skelton, Taylor, and Abbott.
So I discussed this last night at the sewer district trustee meeting. We received this letter from Skelton, Taylor, and Abbott. Jim Frost, who has been the attorney for the water district for a number of years, I believe 6 years now, is leaving Skelton, Taylor, and Abbott. He's going to a new firm. They have brought on a new attorney. His name is Grady Burns. He used to be an Auburn city councilor. He has a background in municipal law. And they are asking if we want to sign off and have our legal files transferred over to Grady, or if we want to have those legal files transferred to another legal firm. At this time, I've only met him once. He came in about a month and a half ago. It was kind of a I wouldn't say surprise visit. They called me the day before. Jim said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. I'll be by tomorrow." I said, "Okay, I'll be here." He stopped in with Grady. We introduced, we shook hands, we talked about things for a few minutes. I didn't really know what was going on at the time. And at the end of it, he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to be moving on, and you're going to be getting a letter. Until you get the letter, kind of keep this under your hat." And I said, "Oh, okay." And after talking with the sewer board, I'm going to I'm going to ask Mr. Burns to come in and talk with him about this a little bit more, try to get a feel for who he is and what his experience is, and see if he's somebody that we want to have start working on our legal matters. I also like to recognize that we've been working with Eaton Peabody through our litigation. I've become very familiar with Mike Hodgins, and we have a good relationship there as well. I feel like, maybe if Grady isn't a good fit, then maybe, Eaton Peabody would be. I feel like we have a good fallback there.
Well, Jim was only able to get, was an attorney on certain things, because he had a conflict, right, where he was
Well,
representing
he
the
was,
commission, yeah.
he was our attorney for everything, and then, when this litigation started, he was conflicted out because he also represents the commission, and so he's had to step away because of anything related to that. So and since then, we've been using Eaton Peabody for that stuff, and then we've been using them for other things, and it's, now Jim's leaving, it's like, well, what do we do,
My thought would be that we could ask Skelton Taylor Abbott, Mr. Grady, to give us his opinion on some of the issues that we're dealing with. Not just, we've got, the litigation is the litigation, that's what it is.
So much of what, yeah.
But we've got a lot of other things that we've been talking about doing. We've got the agreements between the cities, we've got,
Again, it has to do with litigation, because right now.
Right now,
that's
but-
what's-
but-
Protection of Lake Auburn,
to
Pola.
protect the POLA, the bylaw updates and all those types of things. And my suggestion would be that we give that opportunity to Grady, to Mr. Grady, to give us his opinion on what needs to get done and what his rate's gonna be. And do the same thing with Eaton Peabody.
Yes.
And say,
Yeah.
what would be your recommendations on, and ask them to tell us what they would like to do. I mean,
Yeah, well, I know Grady Burns from when he was.
See, I don't know him, so-
I know him from middle school.
Mr.
I didn't know him either, so.
But, I also knew him as a counsel, I sat with him in council, and he's rather political, he can be, very much so. So I'd be a little concerned about that, but also I'm really concerned because we are under litigation.
Yeah.
There's so much of this stuff, do we turn it over to
Yeah,
somebody?
but we don't want to turn
that-
anything over yet.
I mean,
Right.
really, until we settle this lawsuit, we don't really
Right.
need them, we can use
Yeah.
Peabody for.
Oh, absolutely. No, I don't think I would never have thought to transfer this stuff to Grady because the commission got this exact same letter
Yeah.
from Skelton Taylor regarding Jim,
I
so
think you might be
they're
good.
gonna be looking at Grady as well.
Yeah.
I think in the long run, it probably makes sense that we not have the same attorney as
Yeah.
the
Yes,
commission,
right.
which has been done in the past. That's just my 2 cents, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I know, I've been very pleased with the way Eaton Peabody has treated us.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not cheap, but
First off, can we send Jim Cross a little thank you note? And I will forward you a
Best of luck,
photograph of his house with Lake Auburn in the background. You guys can do a color print or something maybe, and then send a little thank you note.
Sure.
that's a good
Um,
idea.
Second, I agree with what you're saying. Skelton Taylor Abbott did the 99 letter, did the 97 letter, and has done his CSO, reviewed our CSO debacle as well. So maybe it's time to see what another firm can do for us.
Especially
clean
someone
slate.
that's outside, there's no, my aunt lives in Lewiston and my brother-in-law worked for
Yeah.
Lewiston Public Works and my,
Oh, who was that? Oh, that was Heather Hunter's Lewis administrator.
yeah, my
She's a friend of
kid's
mine.
married to this person's stepson and,
Yeah.
that stuff.
But I mean,
I like,
I don't
I
know.
think we'll go with Eaton Peabody on this.
well, I mean, I think we're
We're
with
gonna
them
give
for
this,
now.
we're gonna give this a shakedown, we're with them for the litigation, we're not going anywhere there. But we're gonna give Grady a shot to see what his opinion is, and maybe he can make a quick presentation to the board, and we can gauge that, and
And what it
move
would
forward.
cost, and then
Yeah.
I'd say that have the same conversation with Mike.
Yeah.
And say, he's gonna be very familiar with, because he's seen all the agreements and he's seen what's going on, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Options are good.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right. October trustee meeting alternate date.
We talked about this sewer trustee meeting. I'm not gonna be here that week in October. What we prefer to do is I will have Matt prepared. He will be able to sit in my place and answer the agenda questions. I will help put the agendas together. I'll make sure all the information's there. I'll touch base with Matt with the chairs and make sure that's all set. But I agreed with the sewer board. They prefer to keep it as scheduled rather than reschedule around me, which,
Yeah.
You guys good with that?
I'm good with it too, yeah, that would be my
Okay.
opinion as well, yeah.
Good.
all right, so that's all
Excellent.
set.
Measuring of the lake.
All right, so this was brought,
Something fun to talk about.
So for 30 or more years, I can't find how far back this goes, but I know it's been going for over 30 years. The two districts, the water district and the sewer district, has hosted a measuring of the lake event. And it has always been in a trustee appreciation dinner, basically. There's only 2 trustee positions that are paid. The rest of you are all volunteers. You come to at least 12 meetings a year, in some cases up to 18. You spend a lot of time here. And there's always been this measuring of the lake event where we thank the trustees for their service. We've always invited city council members, our partners and our interlocal agreements between the wastewater treatment plant and with the city of Lewiston, and had this measuring of the lake event. Prior to COVID, there was some issues with the event on the funding. When you invite, say, commissioners, do we send the commission the bill for that? There was some billing concerns from the representative committees and boards. And then when COVID hit, it all just came to an end. And I kind of forgot all about it, to be honest. I wasn't planning on it, but I was asked, and I said, oh, oops, sorry. And I brought it up to both chairs, and they both feel like it would be a great event, a great timing, given everything that's going on. The sewer board talked about this last night, and they are in favor, and they voted to proceed with the event. We're looking at September 28th. It's a Thursday, the last Thursday in September. This is usually hosted up at the water treatment plant up at Lake Auburn. We are the sewer district board. Rather than dealing with the billing issues, we'll just invite Auburn city councilors, key staff members from the city, LOPCA, the same in Lewiston, invite city councilors and staff members and the commission.
Is this a luncheon or a dinner?
It's usually a dinner. It's
Okay.
usually 5:30, 6 p.m. We usually do some educational things, give a rundown on water quality, maybe a tour of the treatment plant. They did watershed tours out on the pontoon boat in the past, but kind of have educational stuff there, and then have an appreciation dinner and thank everyone for their service.
I thought this was.
It's not just mints.
It's not just mints.
It's not just mints? I thought it was.
We'll have
It's
those
not
too.
just the $150 I make a
That's
year
right.
for being the president.
So if everybody supports that, I did get a caterer that is, actually I got one almost secured.
Nice.
If this board wants to proceed.
What are we talking?
Are you in favor of that, you guys?
Yeah.
And then we said we're not gonna bill, we're just gonna,
I'm gonna tell you a story.
We're gonna-
later.
All the invitees are
we're gonna do the hospitality.
So,
We'll be the hosts.
In the past, I think you were just gonna ask the cost. In the past, this is ranged in price, but I believe the last time it was hosted, it was like $80 per person. By the time you factor in the tent, the food, tablecloths, and all the stuff, that's what it factors out at. I looked at the invite list, and I feel like it'll be around 35 by the time you invite city councilors and staff members. But when you invite 35, how many are going to come?
So we get 30 people at $80 a piece, it's
$2,400. Well, I figured around $3,000 is where it was going to be, $1,500 per district.
And like you mentioned, it's kind of like an olive branch,
Yeah, I
all
think
the
it's a-
collateral.
Yeah, let's get, I found that when we had the ad hoc meeting, that being able to talk in person with Kevin was a positive. And I think this gives
Well, maybe a good reason to do it.
it's, people have a hard time, it's a lot easier behind a keyboard and with lawyers and everything else to be unfriendly when you're standing there talking to someone and breaking bread. It's hard to really not like
So
someone.
where does measuring of the lake, where did that?
I don't know where that term came from. I just know that's what it's been called for eons. It was more of a false thing. They weren't really measuring the lake. They were, back in the day, it was.
That's what they call, we're going to measure the
We're going
lake.
to measuring
Really,
the
they're
lake.
going to dinner.
Dinner and drinks.
They had to call it something so they could write it off.
Right.
Yeah,
There will be no
right.
measuring that I'm aware
No,
of.
there's no putting a stake to
Bring
see what the
nobody
levels
comes
Bring
are.
our own tape measure or
If there's-
ruler.
If the weather's good, they'll have a pontoon boat probably.
Yeah, we usually
So you
put
go
up a
for
big
little ride.
tent.
Yeah, it's good and it's informative.
Get algae skiing.
All right, so it sounds like that's mostly supported, and we're
I think so.
going to proceed. So
Right.
you will see, probably by next week, invitations going out for that. Gonna get RSVPs, menu choices, and try to get that going. So,
Great,
all right.
thank you. PFAS litigation.
All right, so I got a call
For
from
fun stuff.
Mike Hodgins, who ran into this Jamie Bello at a conference, and Jamie knew that Mike was representing us, and asked him about if he thought we would be interested in getting involved and signing up in this class action suit against PFAS. So PFAS, forever chemicals, I'm sure you've all heard that term, we've talked about many times here. There is a class action lawsuit going on where we could receive the rewards of damages from the manufacturers of these chemicals. The district has been fortunate, the water district, where we have not been impacted. We've had non-detects so far for PFAS, but as the technology gets better, they're lowering the standards for PFAS, and the technology of the testing is getting better. I'm not going to say that we're always going to test non-detect for PFAS, and we do not have to have any current damages to be eligible to receive funds through this suit. There is a standard fee. I'm going to find out what that fee is. I also agreed to do this for the sewer board. I'll get that information out, but it sounds like this is something, it doesn't cost us anything to sign up for this. And in the end, if there's, $100 or $1 billion settlement, we could receive some of the funds towards that. So if we have to do increased testing, if we have to put in treatment for PFAS, we would have money to do that. So it sounds like a win-win, and our attorney said it passed his review. So as long as you all are good with that, I'm going to sign us up for it.
And we don't need to pay the fee unless we reap some benefits?
It's
It's
a
a
settlement
percentage
is
of your
awarded.
settlement.
So what?
It'll be a percentage of the settlement.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I know City of Auburn did that with the opioids, and they actually had some money finally
Yeah.
trickling
They've been
in. It
receiving
wasn't a
money.
lot, but it was something. But the issue is, what are we gonna do with the money? And that would be my concern, because I know with the opioids, I don't know if you guys voted on what to do with it, or it just went into the police general fund, or what happened.
We haven't actually, to my understanding, I don't think we've received any of
I
the
thought
money
we
yet.
did, but.
If we have, I know that we did extend the pilot program that we put in place with the police department.
Right, and I think that I heard something that some
And
of
I
that money
believe,
went into that,
yes, that's what I believe.
so. But just making sure that the.
It hasn't been much yet,
Earmark what the money's gonna be used for, or if it should be,
but it's certainly, I agree with
not just
that.
going to the general fund, but actually be earmarked for.
I'm very sure that we're directing anything that comes in towards any of on the city council side towards that.
We're supposed to
Pilot
go-
program
we're supposed to offset-
addressing that
What it's
issue.
supposed to do is go off to offset the cost of opioid abuse,
Correct.
right? But what happens is you use it for new spending. And I don't know necessarily that's right or wrong, but the whole idea in the beginning was use to offset your costs for fighting
Well, that's what,
opioid
right, that was what
abuse,
the,
not new spending. But
So that's certainly something, if we do receive funds, we certainly can do that. As
as long as
earmark
we
what
don't
those
have to
will be
do
used for.
anything much to get it, right? We don't provide a lot of information we don't want to give out or anything.
Nope, we're good to go.
and so far on the water side, it's really something, it's really more a sewer side at this point.
The sewer hasn't incurred damages. The cost of disposal of sludge is, quadrupled in the last 2 years. So it's hurting. We're feeling the effects.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. Anybody?
Yeah, I'll put that on next month.
Okay.
I missed it for sewer.
Okay, so we're gonna, trustee open session, anybody have?
Just one quick item.
Yep. Dan?
I wrote a couple notes here. Just a future agenda item, discussion and/or action with regard to existing agreements with Lewiston Water.
The interlocals. That's the ones from 99, 97, 91, 12.
I think the 91 is LawPec, right? But we're party to that, but I don't know. I guess that could be
99.
part of the
Start
discussion.
with the 99 memo.
Yeah,
That is the
99
most
memo.
important, that's the most encompassing, and maybe, I
That's where we're
don't know,
gonna
Mike has
put
already
that on.
talked about
We're putting that
particular
as an
memo.
agenda item next time?
And see what we can do about that, because it needs to have a regular agreement replacing it. It was supposed to be back
Yeah.
then.
There's several interlocals that we have that are supposed to be replaced within a year that are.
And I think that should be,
Before any of us were trustees.
I mean, if we need counseling
I don't know about
before, that should be an open item, so people know and they can watch the video of what we're thinking and why we're thinking it.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, what do you guys think?
I agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's already, cat's already out of the bag, we're gonna
Yep.
talk about it, right?
Yep.
So, the folks.
We've already tried to reach out to them about
Yeah.
it once,
Yeah.
and then they sued us.
Yeah, we know what response we got, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that needs to be readdressed. Because Andy, you went over there, I think, right?
Oh, I talked to
Yeah, we both-
Dennis Dote when he was the administrator, and actually went over and had a meeting with Heather Hunter. Both times it was put off,
Yes. And then they sued us.
and they said,
Did not want to deal with it.
no.
Anything else? Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? It's only 5:05. We've got
It's like a
25,
sewer
we've got 25 minutes.
We're 4 minutes longer than sewer.
With an executive
You beat me
session.
to it, yeah.
Okay. Then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Hey! Thank you for coming.
Now I get it.